What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers. We're going to talk about some of the players that I think are going to benefit the most from Luke Fickell coming on board with his coaches. I think there's a couple players where this could just turn their careers in a completely different direction. We're going to talk about that next on Locked On Badgers plus more. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what is going on, my friends? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. As always, truly appreciate everybody tuning in, everybody listening as we get closer to the holidays here. If you're on the podcast, if you're watching on YouTube, whatever it is, I appreciate y'all so much. Let's get into it. Let's go content here. Players that I think are going to improve or really have a new outlook on their career with Luke Fickell and this coaching staff. Let's start with the obvious ones, right? It's Cole LaCrue and it's Miles Burkett. These are the obvious ones. And we've talked about this for a while. I want to focus on Cole LaCrue a little bit, but they're kind of similar in that this thing is going to change the entire lens for them, right? Because it's not just, we've talked about this, it's not just Paul Chryst and Luke Fickell switching out, it's Phil Longo and Gino Guidugli coming in. You went from a staff that quite frankly didn't have like a dedicated quarterback guy because Paul Chryst really wasn't in that role anymore, to a staff now that has two people coming over that were the quarterback coaches for their university and both have developed quarterbacks, right? With Longo and Guidugli at Cincinnati and North Carolina. And then on top of it, Luke, what did Luke Fickell say? I want a mobile quarterback, right? I want a playmaker. I want somebody who can move. Where let's be frank, the previous coaching staff wasn't. They certainly weren't putting the emphasis on that. So now you have Miles Burkett and Cole LaCrue, both players who can move a little bit. I would classify both as more pro style quarterbacks that with mobility. Like they're not true dual threat guys. They're not 4-4 guys. They're not guys who are designing like power runs with the quarterback. But both of these dudes are mobile, and that is what Luke Fickell wants. This is a career changer for those two, I think. And then on top of it, you have Longo coming in with what he's done with Drake May, with Sam Howell. You have Gino coming in with what he did with Desmond Ridder. This is awesome for them. I think this completely changes their trajectory and the type of players they could become. All right, let's go running back, Braelon Allen. Now, I was thinking about this. This is rattling in my head. And we talked on this show a lot about what was different with Braelon Allen this year, right? He was not quite the sledgehammer that we've seen. He was more, picking spots, a little Le'Veon Bell type running style, too patient at times. And we put a lot of that on Al Johnson, running backs coach. Maybe he changed something with Braelon Allen. We put some of that on Braelon Allen, just like, dude, lower your shoulder and go. But what if a lot of that was just there's so much congestion and trash at the line of scrimmage, right? It is a lot to pick through as a running back when there's 7-8 defenders in the box and there's two tight ends and a fullback trying to lead the way. For a running back like Braelon Allen that doesn't have a lot of experience being a running back yet, I think in this system, in Phil Longo's system, he's going to see creases and spaces he has never seen with the Badgers, right? They're going to split four out, maybe have a tight end, maybe an H-back in the backfield, three receivers a lot, but he's going to get cleaner looks, less people in the box. And I bet you you're going to see a player that looks more decisive when in reality, it might just be a guy who there's just a lot less trash at the line of scrimmage. So it's easier to make those reads. I think Braelon Allen is going to have a big time year next year. And it's not like he was a bum this year at all. Over 1,000 yards, a really good player. I think next year you're going to see him evolve into a type of running back that we were all kind of hoping to see this year. So I think Braelon Allen is an obvious one with his coaching staff as somebody that's going to take a big jump up. JT Seagreaves, this is kind of my wild card one. Tight end from last year's cycle. I talked about it when he committed. I liked his film so much. Like, he is just an athlete, right? Multi-sport guy, did track, basketball, football. He was a player who came into camp and really impressed, came back into camp and impressed again. He's a guy that is a big-time athlete, has the potential to be a big-time receiving tight end, now going into an offense that I think is going to take more shots and trying to find those matchups a little more frequently. Get him matched up on a big safety where maybe he can use his basketball background in high school and his size to box him out, or a linebacker where I think he's going to just be able to run by a lot of those dudes. So Seagreaves is somebody I'm really interested in. I already love the upside. Like, he was a prospect that I felt was crazy underrated coming out of Wisconsin. probably because he played a bunch of sports, right? He didn't have a ton of exposure, but he checks the athletic boxes, the frame boxes. And now, again, this offense, I think, is going to be able to utilize some of that a little bit more and exploit it a little bit more. So JT Seagreaves is another one. That's a bit of a wild card. But that position, let's be clear, that is a position that's been ravaged with injuries, right? There's playing time to be had there. So I'm interested there to see what happens with Seagreaves. Keontez Lewis is another one for me that going into this new offense, I'm very interested in seeing. Now, a lot of receivers you could put into this, right? I think this offense is going to be better for Skylar Bell. I think it's going to be better for DK. I think it's going to be better for Marcus Allen when he gets back. I'm interested to see what we have with Brooks Jr. and Tommy McIntosh and Vinny Anthony. But Keontez Lewis has a bit of a second gear, right? 6'2", 6'3", lanky, 4.4, 4.5 speed, averaged 16.9 yards per catch this season in an offense that was pretty limited. I think he's going to be one of the primary big play guys in Longo's system next year. I'm excited to see more of that, and I'm excited to see more deep shots. I think he can be that dude, at least that vertical element where he gives the offense some of those big shots that they're looking for. So Keontez Lewis is someone I'm interested in seeing. The former UCLA transfer played quite a bit this year. How about let's shift to defense now. Let's go Al Ashford. Now, Al Ashford is a guy who previously, when I was doing the Bucky cast, I was really high on, right? Because yes, he was a bit of a project. Yes, he wasn't the highest ranked recruit, but he's 6'1" and he runs a 4.4, right? He has legitimate physical measurables. And then what have we talked about with Luke Fickell and his coaching staff? What are they looking for, right, in defensive backs? Now think about it. Who are they targeting? They're targeting 6-foot guys who can run, 6'1" guys who can run. Well, who fits into that mold on this current team that is maybe underutilized? It's Al Ashford, right? It's Al Ashford who missed a lot of last year with an injury. They kind of got shifted from cornerback to safety. I did an interview with Roderick Rogers, former Wisconsin Badgers, great player, and he talked about Al Ashford. He trained with Al Ashford, helped train him, and he said, he's got a lot of athletic tools, physical versatility. This is the type of athletic mold that Luke Fickell looks for. So I'm very interested to see what happens there. I could see him shifting back to cornerback, especially since the depth at safety is becoming one of the strengths of the team. I can see him shifting back to cornerback and Luke Fickell and the staff developing him, right? Taking a chance to develop this guy into a corner for them, for their system. So Al Ashford, I'm interested in. And another cornerback, Avion Jones. Very interested in Avion Jones as well. So if you remember one of the first interviews I did with John Garcia Jr., the Sports Illustrated recruiting insider, I asked him, who is the most underrated recruit in the 2022 class, last year's class? And he said, it's Avion Jones. It's that cornerback from Tech. Like, that dude is a dude. And I should go back and find the actual quote from John Garcia. But yeah, he's like, that dude is physical. He's long. He's athletic. He tackles. He looks the part. Big time player. And now I'm looking at, again, this coaching staff coming in. What do they look for? They look for physical players. They look for bigger players at that position. Well, Avion Jones is a 5'11", almost 6-foot corner with long arms, physical, runs well, really well built. He, again, fits this mold of what Luke Fickell and his staff is looking for. Like, for a long time, the Badgers it felt like they've recruited cornerbacks and they haven't targeted the physical projection guys, right? They've targeted a lot of 5'10", 5'9" guys, but good tacklers, good football players, but not the size and speed and athletic ratio that Luke Fickell's going after. So both of these players, Ashford and Avion Jones, I think they fit that mold. I'm really interested in seeing I can't wait, quite frankly, to see how this roster shakes out, what it's going to look like in the spring, what it's going to look like when we get through fall camp next year. But these are the group of players that I think it really benefits. Braelon Allen, the quarterbacks, obviously, Keontez Lewis, JT Seagreaves, and then those two corners, Al Ashford and Avion Jones. I'm looking for all of these players to potentially make kind of a big jump under the staff. All right, coming up, we got some comments we're going to get to, including a person who doesn't quite like my show. But again, I'm here for that. We're going to get to all of that. Talk to a little Isaac Rendo, comment about my show, and get into some more of the discussion about which quarterback you would take if you had the choice. Would it be the safer Brennan Armstrong or the higher upside Nick Evers? We're going to get into all of that next on Locked On Badgers. But first, today's show is brought to you by the National Highway Safety Transportation Administration. And, one of the things that we continue talking about in this holiday season is being safe, being careful. Did you know that driving high is considered driving under the influence? That's right. Driving under the influence of marijuana is against the law in every state, even in states where marijuana is legal. That means driving high could get you a DUI. And if you think law enforcement officers can't tell when you're driving high, you're wrong. Your friends can tell. They can absolutely tell. Coworkers can tell. Parents can tell. Everyone can tell. So what makes you think that a law enforcement officer doesn't know when you're driving high? Driving under the influence of marijuana can slow your response time and change how you perceive time and speed. So even if you think you're fine to drive when you're high, you're not. Because the bottom line is, if you feel different, you drive different, and driving high is driving under the influence. So remember, drive high, get a DUI, paid for by the National Highway Transport Safety Administration. I want to thank everyone again for tuning into Locked On Badgers, making this one of your first stops every day. Really do appreciate every single person that's helping us to build this channel. Love y'all guys so much. And let's just keep going. Let's get into some comments because I never get to them all, but I always want to try to get into as much of these as I can. Let's go. Lee Herschel says, please get over your man crush on Garendo. We need a James White type, speed and quickness. First of all, I will not get over my man crush on Isaac Garendo. I will never be over that. The fact, I'll repeat this and I will beat this dead horse. The fact that you have a guy that big and that fast that this staff couldn't figure out how to get 10 touches a game to will haunt me until the end of my fandom. But Lee, I agree with you. We do need like a James White type, like a James White light, right? James White types are really hard to find. That guy is an incredible player. But a guy in that mold, like how about a Dare Ogunbowale, right? Maybe that player. That's not as hard to find, right? A guy who could be a really shifty third down back, create mismatches in the open field, break tackles, catch the ball really well. They need that dude. They need another Dare. And I don't think they have one on this roster right now. I think Nate White coming in this class, the in-state kid, could be that type of player. He is incredibly electric in the open field. Like, he just breaks confidence bones of people who come up to try to tackle him. So I think he could be that guy, but I don't think that guy's on the roster right now. So I agree with you, but I will not get over my Isaac Garendo man crush. Absolutely not. Let's keep going. This one from Thomas Bittner. Just being honest, but this particular podcast is always too long for me. Get to your points without so much blabbing. Thanks, Tom. Love it. All right, let's keep going. Greg Linscomb. Remember, Mertz was – now we're going to get into this quarterback discussion, which I still find really interesting, right? Would you rather get the safer but probably less upside quarterback that's played more? Or are you taking the swing on the younger kid with upside that hasn't proven anything? So Greg Linscomb, who's been on the show, a lot of comments on the show, I appreciate you, Greg, says, remember, Mertz was the highest upside quarterback in program history, and people couldn't wait to anoint him as the next great quarterback. Hope. It doesn't always work out. And that's something I've said too. Like, college football the landscape is littered with the dead bodies of hyped up quarterbacks that didn't pan out, right? There's tons of them. I mean, you could just go Ryan Parlow. You guys remember him from LSU, 5-star dual threat quarterback, never did anything. Tate Martell, the Ohio State quarterback, never did anything. You know, like, there's tons of dudes who have hype and look the part, and then they get to college and they flame out. So yeah, it's a good point, Greg. Like, there's more risk there. Driftless Man says Evers is the better option. I don't expect Fickell's first year for him to light the Big Ten on fire. If we're going to have one more building year, fair, I'd rather have the young guy with higher ceiling. And listen, I get both points of this. This is not meant to try to die on either hill. They both make sense. You can make a very clear and compelling argument for either. And what Driftless Man is saying is, give me the upside guy. Like, if it's going to take a little bit for Fickell to get going anyway, let's get the guy that can raise the ceiling. And I agree with that. That's a very solid point. Excuse me. Andy N says, this might be the first time I'm disagreeing with you, Ryan. I feel like Evers is the guy we need. Like Rajiv said, Evers could be the quarterback that changes this program. And it's true. And by the way, like, I should probably never disagree with Rajiv because he's smarter than I am. But he's right on that, in the idea that this type of quarterback could elevate the program if he hits. I don't think Brennan Armstrong is elevating the program if he hits. Like, Evers is the type of guy who could do that. And that is the intrigue and the excitement with him. He could be a trajectory changer. He is, nitrous in the fuel tank. Whereas, Brennan is more just like 87 octane, right? It just keeps the engine going. It can get you up the hill, but Evers is a rocket burner. If you hit on him, it's a big deal. So, 100%. It's a very good point. And then Big Apple Bucky comes in and says, as with Moneyball, I prefer proven capability, Armstrong, over potential Evers. Of course, if you can take both, get both if possible. Yeah, and like that's what John Garcia Jr. was saying as well. He said, yeah, maybe you get both. And that's that's why I wanted to talk about and finish the show with. If you could get both of them, and by the way, there's a scenario where you get none of them. Let's be very clear here. I don't want to talk like either of these eggs are in the fridge ready to go into the omelet here. You could get none of this, right? I know for a fact other programs are after Nick Evers. I know for a fact that other programs are after Brennan Armstrong. Oklahoma State, who are playing in a bowl game, is really heavy after Brennan Armstrong. So, like, there's a chance you get neither. But let's just pie in the sky. If you could get both, that way Armstrong could come in, probably be the guy in year one. Evers could learn from him, take over next year. That would be incredible. That's the home run. So that's what I'm hoping for. But I do want to caution fans that either way you go on this one, we're in a better spot than where we were. All right. Brennan Armstrong or Nick Evers are both preferable options to what we've had recently and what we would have had coming back this year. So there's two good answers to this question if you get either one of them. And that's where I'm at. I hope to get one of these two. And I think we probably will. I still have a really hard time thinking you get both, but that's just where I'm at. Anyway, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Quick show today on Wisconsin. A bunch more content coming up. I promise you that. And really do appreciate everybody listening. Your first team or your first listen of the day every day here for the Badgers whenever news breaks. So on Wisconsin, appreciate y'all. Let's go.